Do you want to know why you keep losing your gunfights in Call of Duty Mobile? Because the time to kill can vary, and it can feel like sometimes you're even one shot behind. Hey everyone, Locknload here. In this video, we'll be explaining how Call of Duty Mobile time to kill can vary, and this is all very interesting to hear, so make sure you stick around until the ending. I like your Tickrate G. We shall begin this little video with an introduction to Tickrate. What's this alien word, you might ask? Essentially, the tick rate is the frequency at which a server processes information in a game, which is called the tick. The frequency at which it is processed does refer to as tick rate. This includes processing of shots hit, damage taken, player positions, etc. For CoDM, this number is at 20 Hz for MP and 24 Hz for search and destroy. This would mean in a multiplayer game, the server processes information every 50 milliseconds and every 41.6 milliseconds in search and destroy. The time to kill variation issue, a problem debated since the release of the in-game weapon stats page, the war between pseudo-analysts and gunsmith gods. Does a 5 millisecond rate of fire difference matter in practice? The answer? Kind of. However, to arrive at a solution, we shall start from the very basics. Consider this diagram. Now, if a player takes a shot very early into a tick at 15 milliseconds, but his ping is 40, the data is sent off to the second tick. This would result in a wait time of 85 milliseconds for shot registration. However, if he took a shot in the very beginning of a tick at 10 milliseconds, as seen in the second shot in the diagram, the server registers it as soon as it receives said information. Similar issues could also apply to your FPS and which part of the frame information is taken in by the game. The Tickrate FPS marriage. Combining the information gained from the enlightenment above, I was curious. Could we see the effects of Tickrate by bending it to our will? Turns out we can. To put this to the test, I simply set up an autoclicker and make it wait 5025 milliseconds before killing a practice target. Why this number, you might ask? It's divisible by 8.33, the frame time at 120 FPS, so FPS won't affect our results. It's also the half of a tick, which is 50. This gave a time to kill variation every 2 kills, which is the expected result. However, variations in these results are also seen in the data panel by 1 to 2 milliseconds. After the tick rate test, I got curious. Does the FPS affect it too? And affected it did. When locking the game FPS to 15, I managed to get consistent results of GKS killing in 133 milliseconds, a whopping reduction of 66. However, I also got 200 ms and 266 ms values. Frame interval at 15 FPS is 66. This test was done keeping the tick rate consistent, so no variation is observed due to it. The inconsistency. After all the findings above, it was time for my final test. How much could time to kill really vary? It was a question that needed answering after all. So I went into the training room and picked up my trusty DRH and AK-47, keeping FPS at 120 and having them shoot at entirely random intervals. Their 4-shot time to kill deviated insanely far away from expected values. It ranged from 250 ms to 400. Though these firearms were pretty rare and most common values observed were 360, 333 and 350. The answer. Rate of fire differences might not be as significant as believed between weapons with extremely similar rate of fire, although differences of 10 to 20 milliseconds or higher would obviously be more measurable on averaging time to kills. And as it turns out, even in Call of Duty Mobile, the secret to winning your next encounter might just be luck. Going dark.